Hey there, it's Sam, making this video here for the new moon in Leo happening today. The new moon in Leo is in Magha Nakshatra. Magha is the sign of the king, the royal star Regulus in Leo. See, I'm standing here on the corner in San Francisco, and this is a very blessed new moon because we have this aspect from Jupiter. Jupiter's still in Aries, and it's putting this trinal aspect onto the new moon, and of course also onto the sun in Leo. So the sun entered Leo last Thursday evening, I believe it was. Certainly by Friday, the sun was in Leo, and I did a report, did an update. I made a video about the sun in Leo last week, and as soon as the sun went into Leo on Friday, over the weekend, they liberated Libya. That's when the resistance fighters stormed into Tripoli with almost no resistance. And I talked about that in that video that I did last week about fighting for what you believe in and a great time of hope and putting into practice your ideals and having the courage to really advocate your higher values and principles, not just talk about them and things like that. So with the sun going through Leo, aspected by Jupiter in Aries, this next month was a great time to do those things. And lo and behold, the next day, suddenly out of the blue, the freedom fighters, the resistance in Libya overtook the loyalists to the dictator Muammar Gaddafi. So it just goes to show how quickly things happen many times. And so since last week also, Mercury has turned direct. So Mercury's no longer retrograde. So these are a couple things that have changed. And so that Mercury retrograde cycle was pretty intense. It was going back and forth over what's called the Gandanta point, which is the point between Leo and Cancer, where water signs end and fire signs begin. There's no nakshatra to bridge the chasm. So you have Aslesha nakshatra stops, and then Magha begins, and there's no bridge. Usually when the signs change, there's a nakshatra behind it, but at that juncture there's a chasm where there's no sign or nakshatra. So it's called the Gandanta point, and Mercury went retrograde over that. So this is why this last Mercury retrograde cycle was, particularly illuminating relative to how well you have the details handled and how well your communication systems are working and how well you're accounting for things that need to be changed and how much flexibility you have in those areas and things like that. So that Mercury retrograde is now over, and Mercury's moving direct. So we've had that, we've all hopefully strengthened our systems and we've learned some important lessons about how we talk to others, how we communicate, and our systems in general. Those of us, I should say us because I include myself, who have like online businesses or things that are very process intensive with information technology, really had quite a time with the Mercury retrograde, but we're stronger on the other side of it. So back to the new moon in Leo. Of course, the new moon is a time when sun and moon come together, and it's the beginning of a cycle. So it's kind of like when the sperm meets the egg and masculine and feminine are unified at a certain point. And as I said, the nakshatra here is Magha, which is the sign of the king. It's literally the symbol is a palanquin, which is the royal carriage, and it's about being on the throne, like the seat of power. And the deity that rules this nakshatra are the Pitris, who are the divine ancestors. And this is really to say that those divine ancestors, those divine ancestors are really the source of our true power. What's happened here? Okay, the source of our true power, which is that we can mistake our power to be something just localized of this world, of this body, of this time, and when we mistake that to be our true power, we're really embracing suffering on some level. It doesn't mean we're not supposed to be powerful in this lifetime and all like that, but it means that that's just one type of power. That's one manifestation of it, and it's actually an expression of how connected we are to the true source, which is something not just of this lifetime. And that true power and that true throne that we sit on is something that comes from the divine ancestors, that comes from the Petries. So it's really just a way to honor your teachers, to honor the past. The other thing about Magha is it is, as I said, related to royalty, and all that. That also means legacies and our family heritage. So this could be a time to really reconnect with your family, with the power that comes through your heritage, whether it feels powerful to you or not. There's a lot of strength or a lack of strength that you are able to manifest due to your childhood and upbringing. Of course, in the West, this is how we see it. It's much less ambiguous in the East, where family is always honored and honorable, and it's thought to and known and said that your lifetime is part of your ancestry. This is why it's said that when someone becomes truly spiritual, 3 generations ahead and 3 generations behind in their family lineage becomes blessed. In the West, we're much more independent from the influence of our family. We can rebel against our family a lot easier. But now is a time to really connect with what the power is that you hold, that comes from your family. What are the gifts that you've that you've gotten from them, and how can you better understand and serve those things in your life? And of course, never forgetting that our true family is a celestial family. That's why it's ruled by the Petries, the divine ancestors, because we may say that, my family, my mother was this way, my father was this way, and but that's this lifetime. Again, we're just so hooked into the, this is my life, this is my lifetime thing, that we forget that this isn't the only lifetime. And let's say you have an abusive father in this lifetime or an abusive mother in this lifetime. Probably in the previous lifetime, you were the abusive father and they were the abused child, or something like that. The thing is that the law of karma makes no mistakes. There are no errors. There's nothing unfair and nothing that shouldn't be happening. And so when we connect with this nakshatra Magha, we honor not just the divine teachers and the divine teachings, but the divine wisdom of the universe that doesn't make mistakes, and we are able to relax into a deeper sense of contentment about the true source of power, and that we're sitting on that throne of power, which is the true self. And the reason we suffer is because we become seduced by a localized form of power, a localized, something of this world, of this body, and as if that's the only, source of strength and power. That's always going to fail. So, being of service to something higher, that's what the good king is. Leo is the sign of the king, and we have this this new moon in the sign of Leo, the sign of the king. So we need to remember the true source of power, and that Leo is the sign of generosity and giving. And the good king gives so that the kingdom can flourish. And when we remember this true source of power that's not just of this lifetime and just of some form of gain in this world and this time and space, then it's much easier to give from a place of of sustained truth and power, rather than something that we can gain for ourselves, but something that we can give. So Leo, as I always say, is really the most generous sign. So now is a time of great generosity and great grace, and especially with this aspect from Jupiter onto the sun and moon, it's a time of enormous giving, just like we've seen in the world with the enormous grace that flowed and the luck that flowed in Libya to the rebels. As soon as they marched on Tripoli, it's just like there was like hardly any resistance, because now is the time. They're acting upon their inspirations and their great teachings, which is Jupiter in Aries, and it's aspecting Sun and Moon in Leo, which is that source of power in Magha. So this next month is a great time for you to really act upon what inspires you. You'll have God's grace flowing, and you'll evoke the power of the divine ancestors. All the teachings that you have accumulated can come to your aid now. See, these divine teachers are always looking out for us. We just have to act upon it, put it into practice, and give. Once we do that, the grace flows. So keep that in mind, and leave me some thoughts.